Hello and welcome to the Watch Hour from Ithaca, New York. Creativity, songwriting, healing, growth, and the evolution of the human spirit. We're going to have some fun along the way. My name is Joe Crookston. I'm a songwriter, artist. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of my musical journey. Across the sea on the Galway wind, to carry me back to you again. Across the sea on the Galway wind, to carry me back to you again. Ah, yes. Sláinte, everyone. Health in Gaelic. Sláinte, the bard, the troubadour, the poet, the Shanachie, the storyteller, the songwriter. I've been going to Ireland now for almost 15 years. Every year I take a group of 24 people over. We get on a bus. We go up and down the west coast of Ireland, from Dingle Peninsula to Galway to Connemara, sometimes up to Northern Ireland, along the west coast, the Atlantic Seaway. I love taking a group of folks over there and experiencing the magic, the people, the landscape, the green, the beauty. And people ask me all the time, "Are you Irish, Joe? Is that why you go?" No, I go because as a songwriter, as a storyteller, I'm not sure there's anywhere I ever go that I feel more appreciated and connected to than in Ireland, with the tradition and the history and the centuries of the bard, the troubadour, the poet, the Shanachie, the storyteller, the songwriter. You might be in a pub at night and the raging tunes are going, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and everybody's drinking their beers. And someone will stand up and start singing an a cappella song in the middle of the room, and everybody, shh. They quiet everybody down, and they lean in and listen and revere it and respect it, sing along, and lean in and appreciate the long history of the bard. A few years ago, a group of us were heading up towards Galway and to Connemara in the northwest area. There's all these winding paths with rock walls, mending walls, with heather blooming and bracken fern. It's very rugged up in the Connemara area. And there might be these walking paths with mending walls with fuchsias, green fuchsia bushes hanging down out of the rock walls. And dangling from the green shrubbery are these little lanterns of magenta and purple fuchsias. They grow wild. They grow along the paths. There's many, many of them, and they're beautiful. And there's a Gaelic word, deorade. Deorade is tears of God. The little lanterns hanging down, fuchsia and purple. The teardrops of God. God is crying, fuchsias, and the fuchsias bloom. And I pulled out my notebook there and sat on one of the mending walls, and I wrote this poem, and I'm going to read it for you. It's called Fuchsia Blooms. Fuchsia blooms. God cries and the fuchsia blooms. I need a good cry too. Dangling bells by mending walls. I need a good cry too. Proud pink and purple drops dangling in the shrubbery, reminding me that it's okay to grieve. Let it pass through. Maybe I've forgotten myself, or maybe I haven't allowed myself to water my driest turf, tough turf. Maybe I'll let these sorrow tears drip flow down, and I can cleanse my blues and wake up my reds and purples, freshen up this place. All right, shrubbery bush, I'll keep tending my brown garden heart and follow your lead towards an opening. God cries and fuchsia blooms. God cries and fuchsia blooms. And as I carry this heavy load, and by the mending wall beside the road, and I gaze upon the heather bloom, across the sea and home to you. Across the sea on the Galway wind, to carry me back to you again. sea on the Galway wind to carry me back to you again. And if the wicked hand of the Tilbury thief comes up to bury me underneath and save me from this hollow hole and raise me up and rest my soul, raise me up on the Galway wind to carry me back to you again. Raise me up on the Galway wind to carry me back to you again. Bracken fern, on the summer wind I will return, and I'll bury the thief of solitude, and I'll lay me down beside you, lay me down on the Galway wind to carry me back to you again. The Galway wind to carry me back to you again. Galway wind. I wrote that song overlooking the Clifton Bay in Ireland, and it's a walking song. If you put headphones on and just take a walk, it's at an ambling walking pace, and sometimes I do that with my songwriting. I'll just go for a walk and get the beat and the rhythm going, and the songs come out of a body movement. That's a good way for me to get out of my head and into my body and my heart. And that song came out of walking along Skye Road, overlooking the Clifton Bay there. And then our group, 24 of us, got in our little bus and we headed down south, down through Galway, all the way to West Cork County, and right to the southern west tip of Ireland. And West Cork is a beautiful, beautiful county. And we went to the town of Skibbereen. And Skibbereen is a beautiful, lush, beautiful, simple town. And it is where the famine took hold the deepest and was very central into the history of the famine. Tens of thousands of people died in Skibbereen during the famine. And it's pretty much common knowledge now that it was a famine. There was food that was missing and not there and not available. But it's really referred to now as the Great Hunger. The Great Hunger because there was a famine and food was scarce, but it was a political hunger. And that food could have been made available had people wanted to make it available. So they refer to it now often as the Great Hunger. And West Cork, Skibbereen was very central. And I'm there with my tour group and the Island River running through Skibbereen, 23 miles long throughout the undulating rolling hills of Skibbereen. And we get in our little bus and we head over to a cemetery just outside of Skibbereen called Abbey Strury. Abbey Strury has been there. It's a 13th century cemetery. And we drive up the little driveway and we park, and 24 of us get out, and you can see the Island River rolling by and the hills behind us. And Abbey Strury is the site of mass graves. Tens of thousands of people were buried at Abbey Strury. And there are also all these old tombstones and the crosses. Some are leaning sideways. And during the famine, many thousands of people were buried here in Abbey's Drury. And this was a remarkable moment for me and an experience that changed my perception of maybe death, dying, funerals in America. And we got off the bus, we went through the little gate and down the slate steps into the cemetery where you have all the gravestones and the crosses and the headstones and the grass, and it's kind of lumpy and the grasses are kind of growing different ways. And then down at the bottom is a big flat green where the mass graves are. And I did not know this. I walked down the steps into this Abbey's Drury, and there was a man down there with a big old belly sticking out, no shirt on. And it turns out his name was Michael. He is the grave digger of Skibbereen. And I thought, what? A grave digger in an ancient famine cemetery? And what I learned that day is that in Ireland, cemeteries are not fixed historical sites. They are living, breathing, recycling, reused, alive cemeteries where people are buried in a cherry wooden box and they're lowered into the ground. And maybe 16 years later, the grave is redug and another person in the family is put back into the same grave. So here we are in Abbey's Drury, Michael, shirtless, digging a grave. He's getting down into the dirt there, and he walks by, and I walk by him, and he said, "Oh, are you the leader of this group?" I said, "Yeah." And he laughs, and he said, "You get down there with that shovel, and you start digging." And I just chuckled, "Oh, yeah, And he's like, "No, I'm serious." And I looked at him, and he looked at me, and he said, "Yeah, jump down in there and start digging. I'm tired." And I said, "Really? Is that okay?" And so I jumped down in waist deep into this hole in Abbey's Drury, famine cemetery, and I started shoveling. And I'm shoveling, and I'm lifting the dirt up into the pile on the side of the hole. And some people are gathering around me, and it really was extraordinary. I couldn't believe I was doing it. And just getting in touch with that idea that this is a famine cemetery. This is a 13th century cemetery, and it's not a fixed historical plot. It's a living, breathing place where the cycles of life and death and rebirth are continuing even till today. And at one point, I took a shovelful, and this blue thing darted across the soil, and I kind of looked, and he goes, "Oh, you got to the rosary." And I looked at, "What do you mean?" He said, "Oh, you got to the rosary." I said, "What do you mean by that?" He said, "Well, when you put the box in and the coffin in, and then you drape a few rosaries over the coffin so that when you redig the grave, when you get to the rosaries, then you know you've gotten deep enough." He said, "You're almost deep enough." And as I dug, this blue rosary came into focus. It was all rusted with dirt around the beads. And I reached down and I picked it up, and it was kind of breaking and the rusting, but the beads were still perfectly intact. And I wiped it off and cleaned it off. And he said, "Oh, you can keep that rosary." And there were maybe 20 to 24 beads, and I wiped them off, and the rusted chain fell apart. And I took each of those beads and I handed them to each of the people in the group. And it was one of the most remarkable moments for me, where this idea that the separation between life and death and the preciousness of preserving someone is not the same as it is in America. This idea that we die, we become part of the earth, we regenerate, we come back, and it's okay. Michael might have been down there with a jug of whiskey, just digging and singing and whistling. And there is such a quality of a funeral or a wake in Ireland that is extremely celebratory. And there's music and there's dancing. And yes, there's grief, and also this recognition that we are regenerated, we are reborn, we are part of the earth, we are interconnected. And there was such a profound feeling in me of finding this rosary, digging that dirt, digging that soil, meeting Michael, and being able to share those blue beads with each of the people on the group, and having that experience of being in Abbeystreury, Skibbereen, West Cork, and really connecting with that. And I finished that. I went for a walk. I had a little ukulele with me, and I went up and I just started plucking away and singing and writing this song. It's evolved quite a bit, and I'm going to play it on the piano, and I'm going to sing you a demo of the song. The song is called Famine Bones, and directly from that experience of digging a famine grave in Abbeystreury along the Island River, West Cork, Skibbereen in Ireland. And so this is called Famine Bones. In the drizzle rain beside the stone, the grass above the famine bones, I shoveled till the rosary was found. By the mending wall beside the stream, the crosses, names, and buried dreams, I lifted up the solitary ground. Baby blue and baby green, and all the broken-hearted ones. Baby blue and baby green, on the wind in the hills of Skibbereen, baby green. And every bead of baby blue on the rosary that shrouded you reminds me of how we came to be. Digging with my steady hands the bones beneath the rolling land, the hunger and the soil made us free. Baby blue and baby green, and all the broken-hearted ones. Baby blue and baby green, on the wind in the hills of Skibbereen, baby green. And the digger man in a belly shirt, he stood and he watched me work, and we talked about the past and where we are. And I thought about the way we live, the ones we love but don't forgive, and I wonder how we ever came this far. Baby blue and baby green, and all the broken-hearted ones. Baby blue and baby green, on the wind in the hills of Skibbereen.